I have to say before I jump into some questions, I'm gonna like nerd out on you like hard. So
That's
I
fine. I love
um
nerding out.
I I'm a musical theater geek.
Oh,
I've seen West Side Story a million times. I've done West Side Story once. It's
who did you play? Can
I
I
was
know?
Riff, obviously the
Of
very
course.
masculine Riff, obviously.
I love it. I
But
love it so much.
something that I have to say about this movie, it's my favorite movie of the year.
Oh, thank you.
I was like nervous. I don't know why, because it's like Tony Kushner and Steven Spielberg, and it looked
Yeah.
beautiful from the get go. And I was like, my expectations completely superseded those expectations. And I have to say, like, no disrespect to the original movie or any production of Romeo and Juliet that I've ever seen, but this is the only version of West Side Story that I have seen where I was like so in love with the love story
Oh,
because
thank you.
like I feel like a lot of productions, the love story seems like a little like, come on guys, like
Yeah.
you guys see each other once and it's
Yeah.
causes all this crap. But every time I've seen the movie, I've been like bawling my face off at the end.
Yeah.
So
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot. No, truly it does because it's a Herculean task to have to like make an audience buy Love at First Sight. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it totally
Fast,
is.
fast, hard love is very hard to sell. So that means
Yeah.
so much to me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I guess sort of in a general sense, I gotta say congratulations on the Golden Globe
Thank you.
and the National Board of Review.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people were saying, you know, the Hollywood Foreign Press has gotten there's been a lot of press about it in the last year or so.
Yes.
And this is a batch of winners that is so incredible.
Mm.
And we didn't get to see a lot of, well, we didn't see anybody get up on stage and deliver a speech. And I was wondering, what do you think you might have said in the room if you had the opportunity to get on stage?
Well, it's an excellent question, and it's honestly something that I don't think I've really thought about because I never imagined that it would happen for me. And I think a lot of that, has to do with winners past. They're not always, my same background and stuff like that. And the stories that are told are not always the stories that I have been so fortunate to tell this year. I think first and foremost, I would thank my I would talk about the importance of my family and the importance of that upbringing that I've been so fortunate to have because this story would not exist without this love story between an American boy and a Latina, and those are my parents. My
Oh,
parents are my dad is a white American Polish man, and my
mhm.
mom is Colombian, and so I'm kind of this incredible happy ending that Tony and Maria never got to have.
Oh,
And I'm the product of that, and I love that so much. And so really, so much of the love that I have in my heart for this story comes from the love that I've received from my parents, but also been able to witness of my
mhm.
parents my whole life. And so I think if given the opportunity to have made a speech ever, really,
Yeah.
that would be where I would start. And also, it's just I would take it an opportunity to talk about the importance of what wins for our film mean, what wins for MJ Rodriguez, Will
Mhm.
Smith, um, Encanto, like
Mhm.
it's such a huge deal. And so I was very fortunate to witness a really wonderful step in the right direction, and I hope that that conversation can continue
Yeah.
to be had.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Um, I'm sorry, I just lost my place. Um, I guess something that I love about this version of West Side Story is Tony's script. I think that what he has fleshed out has really raised the stakes on a lot of aspects about the movie for Ansel's character,
Yeah.
like coming out of prison. And I was like, oh, when I first saw it, I was blown away by just the text. And I was curious what kind of conversations you may have had with Tony or Tony Kushner about
Yeah.
maybe expanding this character and sort of giving the characters something to root for more, I guess.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you where the real standout of the film, take all the performances away, take the direction, take the brilliant Janusz Kaminski.
Mhm.
it is the words on the page that influence every single decision I believe that was made creatively, and by the performances as well. The script is marvelous,
Mhm.
and it was really from the word go. I knew that they wanted to explore this character on a deeper level because they wanted her to be played by an actual Latina this time around. You know, I'm the first Latina to play her on screen, and
Mhm.
there was obviously like a huge curve in the learning experience for me, and then also for them because they were learning from my lived experience.
Mhm.
And what I offered and what I brought to the table as someone who is a descendant of a woman just like Maria Vasquez, who,
Mhm.
you know, had to make these very difficult choices and sacrifices to come here and raise my mom
Mhm.
and give her a life, you know, give her more than she could ever have in Barranquilla, which is where I'm from in Colombia. So there was a lot of conversations that circled around that. But what was really important to me beyond that, I feel like the biggest criticism a lot of people have about Maria's character is the choices she makes and the decisions
Right.
she makes and how she kind of flies off the handle and makes a lot of emotional decisions. But at the
Mhm.
heart of the character is the fact that she's 18 years old.
Yeah.
And so I remember I was 18 at the time when we were filming it. I was 17 while we were rehearsing. I was 16 when I auditioned. I kind of just grew up with this idea of a teenager becoming an adult. I was
Mhm.
in the process of also wanting to portray one. And
Right.
so it was this great conversation I had with Steven and with
Mhm.
Tony on the first day of rehearsals where I said I want her to be a kid. I want her
Yeah.
to be a kid who thinks she knows everything about the world, but in reality knows absolutely nothing and will unfortunately learn the hardest lessons that she will ever have to learn in the next 24 to 48 hours of the script.
Mhm.
And they were very receptive to that. And I think it was a really great facet of the character that's never been explored before. A,
Mhm.
because she's never been played by someone young enough to accurately represent that teenage
Mhm.
angst that she
Yeah.
feels throughout the whole story. Like, even though it's 1957, she's still an angsty teenager.
Yeah.
That they existed. I mean, look at Riff. Everyone finds grace for characters like Riff and Bernardo for being angsty, but when it comes
Mhm.
to the women, they're not as receptive and they have to be more virginal and submissive to
Yeah.
their emotions rather than. So that's why it was really special to have Maria's introduction. The first scene you see her in, she's sour faced and pissed off about this dress and
Right.
not wanting to go to the dance with Chino. And like, she's just a complaining teenager,
Mhm.
nagging, annoying the hell out of Anita. And like, that is what I was like. That's what I'm probably still like. And it was really cool to get to bring that to the screen and
Mhm.
hopefully, you know, beyond the representation that it gives for the Latin community, there's also like a very real lack of actual accurate teenage representation, I think, in Hollywood. And
Yeah.
that was a huge deal as well for me.
Yeah. Like, God forbid you have like a character at that age portrayed at that age. Like, I don't know if I know a completely, you know, sweet, innocent 17-year-old, because I
No,
don't think they completely exist. They
they
don't.
don't exist. I
Um,
mean, like, I certainly was I I was a good kid, but I also lashed out and had parents that I thought were trying to control me. And
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
everyone went through that.
Yeah.
Everybody had those
There's
moments. And
there's
so,
that like excitement of like being on the cusp of being an adult and you think you know everything.
exactly, exactly. And I think we
Okay.
got to really capture that, and that's really special to me.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I want to talk about Maria's relationship with Anita.
Mm.
I I kept thinking of the scene where it's you, Anita, and Bernardo, and I love that scene. That's a great
Thank
scene,
you.
and it
It was
informs.
rewritten about 500 times,
Yeah,
truly. And
yeah,
it was
I
being written while we were filming it.
yeah. I was curious, like, there's so much in there. If you like go in there and watch it over and over again, it's kind of like it informs us so much of the relationships of every single person.
Yeah.
And I was curious if like how much strength you think Maria gets from Anita to stand up to her brother.
Yeah.
I love how he's sitting there and you two are standing for most of the scene,
Mm.
and you two are sort of putting him in his place a little bit, telling him like it is, not being shy about your thoughts and your feelings. And I was curious how much strength maybe Maria gets from Anita, and how much, like, you think, like, if she didn't have Anita in her life, would she be as vocal to her brother?
I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, and a lot of that has to do with backstory that
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately never really gets unfolded too much. There were scenes where it did, but they were cut before they could even be filmed,
Mm-hmm.
um, to my dismay. But you know, you can't have a 4 hour long West Side Story, unfortunately. Um, I really love Maria and Bernardo's backstory family wise,
Mm-hmm.
because you know we get a kind of, you get the line where she says, you know, I was fine in Puerto Rico for 5 years while you come here
Yeah.
and you get to do whatever you want, and in those 5 years Maria has been taking care of their dad back in Puerto Rico, who
Mm-hmm.
has scoliosis and has basically been, you know, his mobility becomes less and less with each passing year.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernardo has not really kept up a correspondence with his family back in Puerto Rico once he
Mm-hmm.
gets to New York. And so there is already this strain on their relationship and a bit of
Yeah,
annoyance for Maria
that's
to
understandable.
Bernardo.
Yeah.
So, and it was also Anita who encouraged Bernardo to bring Maria to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is, you know, it's something that we never get explored. And I think she's only really been there for a couple months. I believe we decided it was
Oh,
like 3.5, 4 months at the start of the film. She's only been there for about 3.5, 4 months.
yeah.
So she doesn't really know Anita all that well. But there is an
Okay.
unspoken sisterhood. And I think that strength really comes from her being the breadwinner back home.
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes to New York and she's, you know, she's cleaning the floors at Gimbel's to still make a buck. But
Yeah.
she is watching her brother get to, you know, fulfill his passion to get money as well. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
has a job, he goes to school, he's educated. She didn't get that. And I think there's a lot of annoyance there that kind of builds up. And then there's a very innate strength that gets to be shown in that scene. But also beyond that, like, it's not a nasty relationship. She's not happy when he's dead. It's nothing like that, which I think a lot of
Yeah.
people seem to think about previous iterations of West Side Story, that the reason they don't interact is because she needs to not feel anything when he dies. It's
Oh,
not the case at all in that
no. Yeah.
film. There's a deep love there, and you can see it the way he protects her at the gym. He only wants what's best for her. He thinks he's doing what's best for her,
Yeah.
even if it comes at a lack of understanding and a lack of compassion on his part. And you also get to see a Latino brother and sister tell each other that they love each other on screen, which
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen before. And getting, I mean, David is the greatest of all time, and so I actually do have that relationship with him in real life, and it's so lovely to get to
Yeah.
see brother and sister on screen.
I had the fortune to talk to him last week, and he's so dreamy, and he's so like, I was telling him that so I talked to him on my birthday, and I didn't tell him. I was like, it's like a birthday present to me that I can talk to Bernardo.
I'm
Um, uh,
dead.
yeah, so it was just sort of like, I love how he brings this this protection to Maria, even though I don't think he even knows
Yeah,
what his protection is. Like, he's protecting her because she is his sister, and that's what he is supposed to do.
right.
Yeah, yeah, and I love how he brings like a masculinity to his dancing. I just, I it's
Yeah.
just it's so good.
I
Um,
agree.
I wanted to talk about how, or ask you about really your journey vocally.
Mm.
How do you think you spoke with the music director about creating a character arc through your singing voice?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was Janine Tesori. My
Oh, love her.
God, like I
Yeah,
actually could not believe my eyes the first time I met her. I could
yeah.
not believe this was a real person. I actually sat 2 rows away from her at the closing night of Fun Home, which I saw 3 times, including like when I found out it was closing, I was like, I have to go.
Yeah.
Could not go up to her for the life of me. I was like, I'm not ready yet to talk to
Hmm.
her about anything. And then 2 years later, I'm in an audition room and I have to chat with her about
Yeah.
character and oh
It's
my
like,
God. I still like she texted me last night and she congratulated me on everything and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Anita." I love her so much. Um, it was a very obviously the singing. It's a musical, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, and Maria is one of the most iconic soprano roles in musical theater. She's an operatic
Hmm.
range, um, which I've always had my entire life the ability to sing that high, but I had never been trained in that area of my voice. So
Mm. Okay.
it was intense training every Tuesday. I would go to
Okay.
my voice coach, Joan Lader, who is quite literally the OG. She trains everyone on Broadway. Every Elphaba, every Glinda
Oh
is
wow.
Joan's student. Um, Sutton Foster is Joan's
Yeah.
student. Like if that doesn't tell you
Wow. Yeah. That I
anything.
know exactly what that means then. Yes.
Like, yeah, who teaches Sutton Foster? Joan. So
Yeah.
I uh I would be in her studio learning all of these different techniques, how to do it on set, also how to do it in a booth, like how to do
Mm.
it in an ISO booth, and all of the different techniques that had to come with that. And Janine would join us and make sure that the uh, dedication to the text, dedication to the staff, the
Yeah.
dedication to the notes that are written on the page, to honor Bernstein and to honor Sondheim, who we were fortunate enough to have with us at the time.
Ah,
Um, who is just the best insight to have on all of this because he was the at the time the only living member of that creative team.
yeah.
So it was an insane opportunity.
Ah,
So, it was definitely a conversation of when does she sound the most mature, when does she sound the
mhm.
most not. And so obviously she sounds extreme, she sounds very childish, but then becomes very mature in the balcony scene because
Mhm.
at first it's a teasing opportunity for her because what the hell is this guy doing
Yeah.
at her fire escape? And it starts with her just truly teasing him, saying, "Yeah, maybe tomorrow I'll run away with you." And
Yeah.
then when it gets more serious and she really feels this deep connection to him, then it becomes love and it
Yeah.
becomes this sense of maturity in her voice. And it was really about the color and the temperature of the voice, which is
Mm.
funny because I don't think a lot of people associate color and temperature to sound, but it was a warm color, it was a
Yeah.
warm temperature that we needed to add to find that maturity. And then, One Hand One Heart is probably the maturest she sounds in the entire score because she's in church, she takes it very
Yeah.
seriously, it's a very important part to her culture. She wears a cross around her neck the entire movie.
Mhm.
She's very devout. There's a cross over her bed, and that's culturally very accurate, especially for the time period.
Mhm.
So that was the most mature she sounds. I Feel Pretty is probably the most immature she sounds, because she's in love and she's young and she's singing about herself. It's
Yeah.
her little moment of her own little narcissism that she's earned and she's
Yeah.
deserving of. And and then really like A Boy Like That is such an
Ah.
amalgamation of all of those colors and all of those temperatures because when we yell and when we get angry, we get very shrill
Mhm.
and we tend to find a weak spot in our voice. There are breaks in our voice when we're fighting, and add the crying aspect to it because holy hell does Maria cry for like the entirety of the film.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful scene, and that was done completely live. We were able to sing everything live at least once or twice
Okay.
on set to just feel out what the
Mm.
acoustics of the room were and see if it was possible for things like I Feel Pretty. We're in this gigantic
Yeah.
Gimbals warehouse. It wasn't possible, but on the soundstage for A Boy Like That, on the soundstage for parts of the balcony scene,
Mhm.
all of One Hand One Heart is live, and all of A Boy Like That, I Have a Love is that one is a behemoth of a
Yeah.
song.
Ah.
Bernstein, wherever he is, holy God, that is a behemoth of a song, and it jumps to so many different places, and very very special couple of days, and it was a lot of
Yeah.
exploring where Maria's character takes her in that journey and takes her voice because
Mhm.
it's where she finds her strength and her understanding of how important forgiveness is, and she's able to receive that forgiveness from Anita, if not in the way that she wanted. The last thing she says is, I love you, but he's gonna have to go away and you're gonna have to go with him, but like I
Yeah.
forgive you, but you have to get the hell out of my house.
Hmm.
And warranted, but it's a heartbreaking moment for her. And that
Yeah.
is the biggest mature moment that we see because, you know, people have probably seen the movie 4 or 5 times if they're there, if they're out there. Uh, I nod. I
Hmm.
understand that I have to get out of here. And so it was definitely a journey that we went on. And I credit a lot of it to Janine.
Hmm.
I mean, how could you not? She's a genius. And a lot of it to Joan Lader, my vocal coach, who just
Yeah.
helped me find those different colors and know how and when to immediately go into it. It was just really, really cool.
Yeah. I remember when the first like look at, it was like a week before the movie came out, and it was like a snippet of you singing Tonight, and it was like when your head comes up into the frame and you start singing the
Yeah,
song, and I was just like, oh my god, it's so clear and it's so pure. And then you listen to both of the verses that you and Anita sing in A Boy Like That and I Have a Love, and it's sort of like all that emotion, she sings it and then you sing it, and the way that it like crashes together is
yeah.
so
Well, you know,
well,
it's an argument at the end of the day, you know,
yeah.
and it's a brilliantly composed argument where and it's one of the first things I think I ever learned in like an acting, the only acting class I ever took. It was it was me and my friend Melody. We did my first show ever together,
Mhm.
and we were in an acting class, and we just had to scream at each other and not hear the other person out. Because it's really
Oh,
hard
okay.
to act that way. Like arguments are really hard to act. They don't
Mhm.
always sound like the arguments from Marriage Story, where everything is carefully thought out and cut together to sound like a
Mhm.
fluid conversation. Where in reality, they sound more like A Boy Like That, where we're singing over each other. And at
Boom,
one
boom,
point, I
boom.
cover my ears
Yeah.
and she rips my hands out and I push her into the table. That's how it goes. And
Mhm.
so to be able to add an element of reality to
Mhm.
something that is, you know, a musical and therefore is viewed as not realistic
Yeah.
is so special. And not only is that the original creative team that deserve their flowers for that, but the way it's shot and the way that it's written directorially for
Mhm.
like through Tony Kushner and directed by Steven and lit by Janusz,
Mhm.
it's a beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful scene.
Even the way that it's shot and presented to the audience is a very confrontational way, and it's sort
Yeah.
of like we're sort of
Well,
like in there with it.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
sort
the
of
shot of
crazy.
just Ariana slamming the door open and it's on her face
Hmm.
only, and that immediate look of disbelief and just betrayal.
Hmm.
It's heartbreaking and
Yeah.
yeah, it's very real.
I knew I knew as soon as like the cue to start the song, when she just strikes you across the face.
Yep.
There's something I said, I like whispered over to my husband, and I this I was just like, I was like, this is gonna be good. Like the emotion is there from the beginning. I was like, and I joked later, I was like, more musical theater songs need to start with a slap. I'm telling you,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, yeah. Um, I guess one last question before I let you go. I'm sort of
Yeah.
haunted by the idea of what Maria is going to do now. I'm
Mm.
sort of, I'm
You and
like,
me both, Joey. We
well,
are.
it's sort of like, where's she gonna go? Like, is she going to, like, she, Tony is dead. Anita doesn't want her in her house.
Mm.
I sort of was wondering if you ever thought about how Maria is going to begin to heal.
Yeah. I mean, there's a
She's
there's
a
a
child
lot.
still, so it's
I know.
like,
It's like,
yeah.
whew.
Ugh.
And Tony Kushner and I have actually yet to have the conversation because we both get too emotional about it to talk about
Mhm.
it. Like I'll sit down next to him and we'll both be like, "Nope, okay." Or like it'll get quiet. There's a lull in the conversation. And we're like, "No,"
No.
just walk away. I mean, for me, it was this. My key into her really was this idea of. It was after our first full read through, and I could not get it together after.
Mhm.
I just could not stop crying, and it was worrisome. And I had Steven like just kept looking at me being like, you okay, kiddo? Like you all right? And like Ansel found it hysterical, was just taking photos of me crying, just being like, you are such a mess. And I mean I was. And it was that moment where I thought about her dad and it broke me. And
God.
what does she write back to this man who really who couldn't take care of himself when she left, but she was, she convinced him to let her go. and said Bernardo will take care of me and I'll be fine. And now he's gone. Like you said, his girlfriend doesn't want her around anymore. And the reason behind all of it is dead as well. And
Mhm.
also, the one suitor she did have, who was honestly kind of a decent guy, is going to prison for a very, very long time.
Right.
My best case scenario for her is that Valentina takes her in.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, thank God.
no, no. Well, it's just sort of like I didn't notice it the first time. When I saw it the second time, I didn't notice, probably because I was a disgusting mess, like sobbing my
Sobering
face
mess,
off.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't realize that she steps into the
Stop.
shop. I didn't
Yeah.
know that the first time.
Yeah.
And when I saw it the second time, I was alone with a bunch of like grandmas sitting behind me on like a random Tuesday, just like, I was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my best case for her. I'm sorry, did you lose me because I lost you for a second? Are we
No,
good?
I'm good. You're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, truly my best. And Rita and I have actually had the conversation where we were like, I think that must be what happens. I mean, but also we're holding space for the fact that a lot about Anita's mentality has probably changed as well because when she says, you'll have to go away and you're gonna have to go with him. You're gonna have to get out of
Mhm.
here. That happens before Shrink comes to question them, and um it happens before she's assaulted.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, Maria holds a lot of anger towards the Jets as well, that they might be able to find common ground. And they also have even more in common now, which sounds really sad. It's like it's a trauma bond for real.
Mhm.
Uh, like the biggest trauma bond I can imagine. Because a lot of people also don't seem to remember when, in A Boy Like That, they're rooting for Anita until I Have a Love, and then they're rooting for Maria, and then they're rooting for forgiveness.
Mhm.
Uh, but the entirety of A Boy Like That is kind of, I think, misconstrued by a lot of people because they forget Bernardo killed someone too, whether
Yep.
it was an accident or not. Because
Mhm.
sometimes it's staged and people are like, "Oh, he didn't mean to. The knife was just there." And in a Chicago style, he ran into my knife 10 times. But like, in reality, it could have been very intentional. We don't really the intent to hurt each other was there, and
Yeah.
it's this animalistic tendency that we see take over Tony, and then he does the same. But like, Anita seems to either not know that that's what happened to Riff, that Bernardo happened to Riff, and then Tony happened to Bernardo,
Mhm.
or anything like that. And I think they both share that reality of loving someone who wasn't always making the best decisions and made a terrible, terrible decision, terrible mistake.
Yeah.
Um, and then they both end up in the ground. So I do wonder if there's room for forgiveness in that sisterhood.
Mhm.
Um, but because the love is definitely there, how could it not be? They love
Yeah.
each other so much, and that's why the end of A Boy Like That, I Have a Love is a moment of forgiveness, which is the most powerful act of love, I think.
Mhm.
But also that's something that Ariana and I both never talked about. It's too real.
Yeah.
This story's really
It's a
sad.
little, it's a downer. What, like,
Dark, David.
yeah, it's like, it's like, hey, dad, crazy 48 hours. Let me catch
Yeah,
you
so
up.
remember when I wrote you a letter 24 hours ago about how I was super in love? So he's dead. Also,
He's dead.
brother, dead.
Yeah.
Chino in jail. Anita hates me. So coming back. I hope you haven't given away my bedroom yet.
Yeah. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Yep. um, I think that's all I have for you, Rachel. Thank you so much for your generosity and your kindness. I
Of course.
think your performance in this is so beautiful, and I like that you bring such complexity, and there's joyous moments that you get to have really resonate.
Yeah.
So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. This was so wonderful. It was so
Yeah.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Good luck for the rest of the season. Really rooting for you.
Thank you so much. Have
Yeah.
a good one.
You too. Stay safe.